That's it for Queen D2. That's it for our lecture, for our discussion, our debates. But of course, Queen D2 will be played many times, and as long as Black will stick to this sharp line with Queen B6, White will always try to sacrifice a pawn and to prove that taking poison pawn, also forgot to tell you that that's the name of this line, that taking poison pawn in the opening is not good for your health. And there will be many volunteers on the Black side thinking that such tasty fat pawn on B2 is worth of taking this risk and giving White an opportunity to attack. And now let's look at the quiet option, when White simply returns on B3 with the knight. No more complications, I mean immediate complications. Pawn on B2 is protected, but Knight, as we know, had to leave a key square on D4. So now Black could develop its pieces without being afraid of immediate sacrifices on E6 or F5. Bishop E7, Queen F3. Another probably important moment, just something that you have to learn. In many Sicilians, many Najdorf Sicilians, White prefers to play Queen E2. It looks ugly because Queen is standing on the way of Bishop F1, but it prepares E5, so it supports this pawn and gives extra power to the White breakthrough in the center. But in this situation, Queen E2, which could be a very natural move, is met by a very strong and subtle move H6. We know, it's very typical. Now after Bishop H4, the same shot we already learned, Knight takes E4, and if White takes on F6, Bishop takes F6, there are a number of games played, and eventually White had to drop that line. So Queen F3, Knight BD7, castle. I would avoid analyzing in depth other lines where White tries to play Bishop E2 or something like that, because White King belongs to the Queen side. It's Najdorf, and of course there were a number of attempts, even by strong players, considering castling short. That's not the way to refute Najdorf, and that's not even the way to fight for any serious advantage. So look at the games, and you find out that Black normally didn't experience much trouble. Castle, Queen C7, Bishop D3, B5. Later we'll look at the main lines of so-called main lines of Najdorf, where Black didn't play Queen C7, Queen B6, but started immediately with this Najdorf layout: Bishop E7, Knight D7, and Queen C7, and B7, B5. So call it a typical Najdorf layout, where Black developed all the pieces, they protect the center, then Bishop goes on B7, and in case White plays A3, then Black has Rook B8, preparing breakthrough B5 before on an attack on the Queen side, where White King is located. But the difference is that in the main lines, so-called main lines, White Knight stays on D4, and of course it changes dramatically all the consequence of the position, because from D4 White Knight attacks E6 square and also is ready to be sacrificed on F5. So it's a brand new game. So, and the tiny difference, Knight moved from D4 to B3, changes completely the ideas behind opponent's moves. Just one tiny difference. Knight just moved from one central square to another square, but all the sides now have to rearrange its ranks, or have to reassemble its pieces and reconsider its strategic plans prepared beforehand. So after B5, White plays Rook H1, And what could be more natural than bishop b7 in this position? But in fact, playing bishop b7 allows white to play a3, and just look carefully at this position. Bishop on b7, which looks very good because it's developed on the ideal square, prevents black of playing rook b8 and eventually organizing counterattack on the b file after b5, b4. So a3 is not a killer. It's not posing terrible problems for black, and we could look at some games, namely Spassky-Portish in '79, and taking a moment, I would like to recommend you to look at the Portish games, who was one of the greatest experts of this line with Queen b6, played it with great success in 70s and 80s, scoring many memorable victories against some strong players. So Portish solved these problems against Spassky, but it's now considered that the best for black is immediately to play b4. So that would be another lesson, very general lesson. Just don't take my words literally. b5, b4 is very good in many lines because it pushes knight c3, a very important piece that protects white square, always ready to be sacrificed on d5 to open e file. But there are some cases where b5, b4 could be premature. But if we look at the big numbers, I would stick with my opinion that b5, b4 is good for black because it helps to confront white in the center, and then bishop goes on b7, and somehow black could either play d5 or knight c5. There were a number of games played, some of them lately by computers, but black always had a pretty good game and good practical results. So it's time for white to think, and you know that if rook h e1 b4 gives black a reasonable game, a good position, why not to play a3 immediately? Of course, now we already know that rook could go on b8, we can play b5, b4, but it's not easy because knight on b3, maybe it's passive, maybe it's not ready to join the attack, but it's very good for defense. So with knight on b3, white king can go on b1 and feel quite safe, because if even black rook appears on b4, it still takes time to play a5, a4, and before it happens, white normally has time either to prepare attack starting with g4, or something, preparing e5 or queen h3 and f5. So I refrain from giving concrete examples. Recommend you to look at games that Peter Leko played in Linares 2001, and again I was the first one to check his preparation. It was round 1, and I was very lucky. I was in a terrible time trouble, and the position was not good at all. In fact, Peter missed at one point a very strong continuation, which could give him excellent chances to win. And saving this game, I gained more confidence that led me to very convincing victory in the tournament. Peter tried this line again against Judith Polgar. It was also a draw, but both games proved that white had pretty good